Good afternoon and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget. It is Sunday. Doing a Sunday show was a little busy during the week, so decided to do a weekend show this time. So it is Sunday, August 4th, year of our Lord 2024. Yes, we're in August, so that means football is here. Already had our first preseason game. I'm going to have college football. Both the last 2 weeks of the month are going to be college football, both week 0 and week 1. I have a full slate of preseason games throughout the NFL as well. So we have finally fucking made it. We've made it. We've made it to the off season. We're into the NFL season and cannot wait. That is going to be a lot about what the show is going to be. If you've watched the last 2 shows, you know that I'm doing my series so far. But before I get into that, just want to do as I always do. If you prefer the audio version, you can find it on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or pretty much wherever you get your podcast. If you prefer the video version, it is available here on YouTube. And like and subscribe to the show right down here always, and leave a comment. Love some constructive criticism as well. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the tops of the show. So this is my third in my series of breaking down 2 divisions in the NFL and breaking down a conference in college football. We've gotten to the South. We are breaking down the AFC and NFC South divisions today. And then I will break down the ACC Atlantic Coast Conference, give you some of the biggest question marks in that conference from the top teams, some of the teams underneath, and maybe some sleeper teams as well. And then, as I started last show, I'm going to go through the positions in baseball since we are in the heart of baseball now in August, and give you my top 5 players at each position. Did catchers last week. This week is going to be first baseman, give you my top 5 first basemen of all time. Probably going to be a little controversial, but this is what I believe. And some players that I've seen, and then some players I've never seen play either because I wasn't alive when they played. But either way, let's go ahead and dive into the show here. We'll start off like we have in this series so far in the NFL and in the AFC. I'm going to start off with my AFC South breakdown. Now, when you talk about the AFC South, you have to start it by talking about the defending division champion, Houston Texans, and not just what they did last year, but what they did this past offseason. But some question marks for me going into the season for the Houston Texans. What is the ceiling for this team? Is this a Super Bowl contender? Is this maybe just an AFC Championship contender? What is the ceiling for this team? I believe the ceiling for this team could be a Super Bowl. I love the additions that they made in the offseason, whether that be you bring in Daniel Hunter, the defensive end from Minnesota, a huge pickup there. Joe Mixon, the running back from Cincinnati, he goes along with Dameon Pierce. I like that 1-2 punch there. And then you bring in Stephon Diggs. Now, Stephon Diggs probably isn't the number 1 receiver that he was maybe 2-3 years ago, but still a very solid receiver. You pair him with guys like Tank Dell, Noah Brown. That's the guy at the top. It's their best guy. But either way, you pair him with an already stacked wide receiving unit. You also have Dalton Schultz at the tight end position, so that's a really good player for them as well. So I like this Texans team. What can we expect from Stroud in year 2? He had one of the best rookie seasons for a rookie quarterback in NFL history. Does he improve off of that? Does he kind of just stay the same, status quo? I think there's no way he cannot improve with the additions they brought in on the offensive side. So really bullish about this Texans team. Right now, I would make them the favorite going into the season for the division. Get into that a little bit later in about 3-4 weeks when I do my NFL season breakdown. But right now, it'd be hard to say that they're not the favorites for the AFC South division going into the season. And then the next team we're going to talk about is the team that actually won this division 2 years ago, was the team that was supposed to win this division last year, had kind of a bit of a stranglehold halfway through the season. Things started to fall off there, and that is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. And question marks for me is, can they bounce back? They were 8-3 last year, playing on Monday night with the chance to be the number 1 seed at that time in the AFC. We know what happened. Trevor Lawrence got hurt. Season kind of derailed from there, and they fell all the way out of the playoffs and couldn't even be a 1 seed or a division winner, not even a playoff team. So can they bounce back? And the biggest question for Jacksonville that I think most people have is Trevor Lawrence. Just got his huge payday this offseason. Don't know if he's deserved it yet, but they thought he did. They think he's the quarterback of their future. I think he should be the quarterback of their future. I still like Trevor Lawrence, but outside of year 2, and you can even question if year 2 he really reached the potential that everybody thought he would be. Let's remember when he came out of Clemson, this was supposed to be the best NFL prospect since Andrew Luck, since Peyton Manning, since John Elway. And I was right alongside those pundits saying that same thing. I thought this guy was a can't-miss prospect, and he still may be, but he has not lived up to that hype. Year 2 was his best year, but I don't know if he still lived up to that hype in year 2. Fell off last year after the injury. First year was atrocious, but we'll give him a pass because of the whole Urban Meyer situation. But now you are in year 4, third year, under Doug Peterson. So you have continuity. You lose Calvin Ridley, but Calvin Ridley really only played 1 year with you. You still got guys like Christian Kirk. You bring in the wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills. So you have talent all over this team. Trevor Etienne, your college teammate, is obviously still there as your number 1 running back as well. So you have the continuity on this team. This is the year that Trevor Lawrence has to show us he can be a top-level, potentially elite quarterback. If that's not the case, then I don't know what to do in Jacksonville. You've already paid this guy a ton of money. He is going to be your future, barring any kind of major injuries. So this is the year that we really need to see the potential that we thought we would see from Trevor Lawrence, that we thought we'd see already at this point. And then last question for the Jacksonville Jaguars is, can this defense be good enough to make this team a playoff team and a potential division contender in the AFC South? You have Josh Allen on the defensive side. I think he's actually changed his name now because he's tired of being called the other Josh Allen, which I don't blame him for that. But either way, you have decent defensive talents, not really top end outside of Josh Allen. So how good can this defense be? I think this offense could be explosive. Don't know if I see them as a real AFC contender, but we'll see if this team can bounce back. Then we'll move to maybe the biggest question mark team in the entire league, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, hats off to Shane Steichen last year in his first year, got this team, almost won the division and got into the playoffs, which was something that I thought most of us didn't think would happen. So Shane Steichen shows that he could be a good coach even as a young head coach. The biggest question mark in the league for a lot of people is Anthony Richardson. I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out of Florida. I thought he was more of just kind of an athlete versus a quarterback. Saw some flashes last year when he played, but he really only played about 3 or 4 games, then got injured and never came back in. So he is a giant question mark. So if he can come in, learn the offense, kind of run the offense the way Shane Steichen wants to do, kind of be that Jalen Hurts that Shane Steichen had in Philadelphia, can Anthony Richardson play that role for this Colts offense? You have solid weapons and guys like Michael Pittman Jr. and Jonathan Taylor. So you have decent weapons on the offensive side. I just don't know what the ceiling is for this team. I don't know if they're really going to contend in the AFC South with teams like the Houston Texans and even with a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. But if Anthony Richardson can be what a lot of people thought he could be, a very dynamic, kind of like a poor man's Lamar Jackson at quarterback, but bigger and stronger, then maybe they can compete for the division. But it's a huge question mark. Like I said, we didn't see him a lot at Florida. I didn't love his game at Florida coming out of college. Didn't see him a lot last year. So a little bit of the Trey Lance situation. Guy has not played a lot of football in the last 3-4 years. At least a lot of starting football in the last 3-4 years. So it's a total wild card, total question mark. I think the wild card, and it's kind of just pair that together. I think the wild card's the ceiling for this team, but get into that a little bit more when I get to my NFL preview. But Anthony Richardson and this team, it's kind of go how he takes it, because they have other pieces, decent players on defense, decent players on offense, but if Anthony Richardson can't be the guy that they hope he could be, then this team isn't probably going to do much damage. And then last team in the AFC South that we're going to talk about is going to be the Tennessee Titans. And Tennessee Titans, another question mark at quarterback. Will Levis is the guy now, at least going into the season. They've gotten rid of Tannehill's no longer there. So it is Will Levis's team. They bring in Calvin Ridley, you bring in Tyler Boyd, you bring in Tony Pollard, but you lose Derrick Henry, which has been the heartbeat of this team for nearly a decade now. So it'll be weird to see what this offense looks like in Tennessee without Derrick Henry, who was basically their entire offense for the last couple of years. So that'll be interesting to see. Just like Anthony Richardson, I wasn't very high on Will Levis coming out of Kentucky, coming out of college. I thought he was inaccurate. I thought he didn't have great decision making. Good, strong arm, has decent mobility in the pocket, but there was just things, and I thought he was a little kind of arrogant and overconfident. You could be Joe Burrow overconfident, but you have to be Joe Burrow if you're going to do that, and he ain't no fucking Joe Burrow, let's be honest here. So I don't know what to make of this Tennessee Titans team. They have decent offensive talent. They've already suffered an injury with DeAndre Hopkins, although it does look like he should be on track to play week 1. Probably won't get a snap in preseason, wasn't going to play very much either. But when you have Hopkins, Ridley, and Boyd as your 3 wide receivers, that's a really good wide receiving core. Don't know what to expect from the running back room between Pollard and some of the other guys they have there. So that's a question mark. Defense is still a question mark. So we'll see. Bring in Brian Cunningham or Brian Callahan. Sorry, the former OC at Cincinnati to be the head coach here. So there's a question mark there. New head coach. And I'm just not sold on Will Levis, so I'll have to see it to believe it with this Tennessee Titans team. But at this point, I'd probably say that they're probably the fourth best team in this division. So that was our AFC South breakdown there. Let's go ahead and move to the NFC South. We'll start with the defending division champions, and that is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And first question is, can we get back to the playoffs? Can they be a division champion? I mean, they were a team that played in the divisional round against the Detroit Lions and kind of gave the Detroit Lions more of a game than most people thought they would. A couple of plays from potentially being in the NFC Championship game. So this was a team that really reached their ceiling last year and almost kind of pushed through that ceiling. Can they get back there? Is this finally a home for Baker Mayfield? We thought it would be the Cleveland Browns when they drafted him number 1 overall. That wasn't the case. We thought it might be Carolina Panthers when he was traded there. That, of course, wasn't the case. It was never going to be the case in LA with the Rams. He was just kind of spot duty when Matthew Stafford was out. But now it looks like he's found a home. He gets a 3-year extension. This is going to be his team at least for the next 3 years. So we'll see what to make of Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. Still a little older than I think they'd like to be on the defensive side, but did re-sign a lot of that older talent. You still got guys like Devontae David, Devin White, guys that have been there for a long time, playing at a high level, playing in a lot of big games. That does help, but let's see how healthy they can get for the season is a big question mark there. Bring back Mike Evans, just another model of consistency at this point is Mike Evans. So the offense, I think, will be fine. The defense, we'll see. I just don't know what the ceiling is for this team. I don't know if they could get back to a divisional round, if they could win the division, or maybe a wild card ceiling for this team. And then we'll move to the team that everybody is thinking is going to be the division winner this year, and that is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons had a very interesting offseason, to say the least. Bring in Kirk Cousins, pay him $180 million over 4 years. He is going to be your quarterback at least for the next couple of years, but maybe not. Because then with the 8th overall pick, you draft Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington, a guy who I was actually very high on coming out of Washington when we drafted this year. So who knows what happened there? But what we've heard about this Falcons team in the last 2 to 3 years is we have very talented weapons on the offensive end. That's Drake London, Kyle Pitts, John Robinson, who they drafted last year. Running back here, a very good serviceable running back in the NFL. We've never seen this offense, especially with Arthur Smith, we've never seen this offense reach their potential. And the biggest thing for that, a lot of people said, and I kind of agree with this as well, is they have not had consistent quarterback performances at that level. Even the last couple of years in that way, they're not very consistent players. So can Cousins bring stability and consistency to the quarterback position for the Falcons? And if he can, is that enough to make this team NFC South division winners and potentially even more? Because I do like the weapons they have on offense. I don't think we have some of the potential guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London last year. But John Robinson is very underutilized in this offense. So can Kirk Cousins bring stability and consistency there and really make and show that this Falcons offense is offensive? So that's a good question mark there. Also, can Logan Wilson, the new head coach, improve this defensive solid and make it better? Compare that with the addition on the other side. I think probably right now the big one is the favorite in the NFC South. And then we move south and we to the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are a huge question mark going into the season. Not many people are expecting very much from the New Orleans Saints, so maybe one of those people as well. One of the big question marks is what's left of Derek Carr? Is this kind of his swan song in the NFL? Is this his last opportunity? If he struggles this year and his team struggles, do we see him going into the 2025 season with a new quarterback no longer Derek Carr and maybe a new head coach no longer Ben Saleh? I think that's a very real possibility for the New Orleans Saints. And also, Alvin Alvin Kamara a couple years back was one of the best running backs in the league, was one of the best offensive threats in the league, running the ball in and out of the backfield, a dynamic player. Last couple of years he's had injuries and general inconsistency at the quarterback position, so it's really kind of derailed his career in these last couple of years. Can he get back on track? We'll see. I'm not very bullish on the Saints team. I don't think they're going to be very good, but they have potential to surprise some people if things can go right for them. And then finishing out the NFC South, we have the Carolina Panthers. And the biggest question mark for the Carolina Panthers is Bryce Young the guy? And in the NFL, you used to get 3-4 years to kind of show you're the guy at quarterback position. You basically get 2, maybe even 1.5 years. Basically, by Thanksgiving of their second year, the franchise either knows they have the guy or they're looking for his replacement. So that's what we're going to see here this year with the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young. I think he has a lot of talent. He throws the ball real well, good arm, both short, intermediate, and long. The problem with Bryce Young is he has to have offensive line protection because he is not that. He's just a small guy. He's basically about the same size as Kyler Murray, but he doesn't have the escapability of Kyler Murray, not as quick and agile as Kyler Murray. So he's, for the most part, he has good mobility, but he's mostly a pocket quarterback. That's what he likes to do. And at that size, that can be very difficult. So can the offensive line protect him so he can show what he can do? If that's not the case, it's going to be another long year for the Carolina Panthers. You bring in some decent offensive additions. You get DeAndre Johnson. You drafted Xavier Legette, the wide receiver out of South Carolina in the first round. I thought that was a little bit of an overdraft, but he does have kind of really good potential if he can live up to it in the NFL. And then you bring in the offensive coordinator from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Dave Canales to be your head coach. He did wonders with Baker Mayfield last year, so can he do something like that with Bryce Young? That remains to be seen. I don't really know what to expect from this Panthers team. I don't know if they'll be that good this year, but I think they should be improved. And if they can protect Bryce Young, I think he could be a solid or at least an above average franchise quarterback in this league. Those are my AFC and NFC South breakdowns. Both these divisions are probably on the lower end as far as like division rankings go in the overall NFL, but there's still some teams in there that I think will really make some noise, especially if things go right, especially in the AFC South with Houston and potentially Jacksonville as well. Now we're going to move to college football, and we did the SEC, we did the Big Ten. We're still in the Power 4 kind of breakdown. We're going to move to the Atlantic Coast Conference, ACC, a conference that may not be a conference for much longer if Florida State and Clemson get out of there, especially if it's paired with teams like North Carolina and other teams getting out of there. But either way, that's a conversation for another day. Don't want to kind of walk all over the ACC's potential grave. But let's go ahead and break it down. I think this could be a pretty competitive conference this year. We'll start with the defending ACC champions and a team that probably should have been in the playoff. We talked about that earlier in the year. We're screwed there. First undefeated Power 5 conference champion, did not make that 14 playoff. But now it's a 12-team playoff, so that's out the window. You win your conference, you're basically going to get in. You're going to get an automatic win. Either way, we'll start with Florida State. Florida State did lose a ton of talent in the NFL, whether it's the guys like Keon Coleman. They, of course, lost their quarterback in Jordan Travis. You lose Jared Verse. You lose Johnny Wilson. You lose just a ton of talent in the NFL. Can they reload and replace that? They've been doing well in the high school recruiting and doing very well in the transfer portal recruiting as well. And one of their transfers this year is quarterback DJ Uiagalelei, quarterback that was at Clemson, then last year was at Oregon State. Had a fairly good year at Oregon State last year for a team that likes to run the ball. Now he's the quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles. He's familiar with the ACC. It'll be interesting to watch them play Clemson and see how that goes down. But what to expect from DJ Uiagalelei? He was a 5-star talent coming in, really highly touted. Came in, kind of had a couple of spot games in the COVID year for Trevor Lawrence and played well, so we thought that this guy could really be the real deal. Never really showed that at Clemson. Had some good moments last year at Oregon State, but I don't know. He's not Jordan Travis. I think Jordan Travis was a better quarterback versus DJ U. But still a guy who can be very consistent, knows where to put the ball, can manage the game for you. Probably is really more of a game manager at this point in his career. But I like this Florida State team still. I think they're still going to be good on defense. They still have some weapons on offense, brought in some people from the transfer portal as well. I think they look pretty good right now to be going back-to-back in the ACC as conference champions. And then we move to a team who dominated this conference for basically a decade up until about a year ago, and that is the Clemson Tigers. In Clemson, the big question mark for me is Cade Klubnik. Do we see that full potential of Cade Klubnik? He's in his second year under Garrett Riley as the offensive coordinator. So do we see that potential coming? Because he was another highly touted high school recruit coming into Clemson. Was supposed to be a guy that maybe waited behind DJU for a couple of years, but was supposed to be, Sean Watson, then he went to Trevor Lawrence, then he went to DJU, and then it was supposed to be Cade Klubnik. I've seen flashes there from Cade Klubnik from time to time, but we really haven't seen that top-end talent that we thought he would have. The wide receiver talent is good. It's not great. It's not like it was with guys like Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, where at one point they used to be putting 2-3 receivers in the NFL basically every other year at that point. Steve Higgins, DeAndre Hopkins, guys like that. They had just stacked groups at the wide receiver position. That hasn't been the case for the last 2-3 years for this Clemson team. Their defense is always solid. Dabo Swinney always has a good defense for the Clemson Tigers, so I think they'll be good on the defensive side. But if Garrett Riley and Cade Klubnik can get this offense going, they can really compete for an ACC title and obviously a playoff as well. And then probably the biggest question mark for the ACC going into this year is Miami. Is this the year we finally see a Miami resurgence? Is this the year? We've been told that they have the talent. They've been recruiting really well, both in high school and in transfer portal recruiting. You bring in a guy like Cam Ward, who's probably one of the underrated players in the entire country. He's the quarterback coming over from Washington State. Was really good at Washington State. You bring him in. They have a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. Good offensive line. But the question mark for me is Mario Cristobal. And kind of the word around Mario Cristobal is he's a guy who can recruit, but he's not the best game day X's and O's coach. And that has been his reputation for a while now. And to be honest with you, whether it was Oregon or now at Miami, I haven't seen enough evidence from him that has disputed that reputation. So I kind of believe that reputation, and until I see more evidence that he isn't more of just a great recruiter and not a great X's and O's coach, I'm going to kind of have to go with that reputation as well. A lot of talent on this Miami team. There is pressure. There's expectations this year finally for this Miami team. So we'll see what they can do. My expectations are a little bit tempered just because we've fallen in this trap before with Miami. We've seen them have decent to good teams, and then, okay, the next year, they're going to be great. They have all this talent, and then they fall on their face. Mario Cristobal, like I said, I haven't seen enough evidence of him to be an elite X's and O's head coach, game day head coach, and not just an elite recruiter. They have a solid staff, so everything is in line for this Miami team to get back to where they want to be, but I still have to see it. And then just some other teams that we've to go around in the ACC. Can Brett Pry and Kyron Drones, can they get Virginia Tech back to some sort of relevance? Finished the year well last year. I believe they ended 7-6, but won their bowl game. Finished the year well at the end of last year. Brought in some nice talent from the transfer portal this offseason as well. When you look at their schedule is one of the more manageable schedules in the ACC. So this is a team that could surprise people. And it's never an easy place to play in Blacksburg, especially when they're playing well. So that could really bode well for them as well. I think Virginia Tech takes another step this year. I don't know if they're a conference title contender, but I think they could win 8-9 games potentially. And that could make them a conference title contender. And then Louisville. Louisville was the ACC's darling last year. They got to the conference championship game. They beat Notre Dame at home. They lost to Florida State, but you get to the conference championship game, they were a top 10 ranked team, both in the AP and college football playoff polls for many weeks last year. Jeff Brom, now you lose. The question mark last year was quarterback position for them. They did not get good quarterback play. Now you're bringing in Tyler Shuck, the quarterback was once at Oregon, that was at Texas Tech. Now he's at Louisville. Don't really know what to expect from him. We haven't really seen consistent play from him, and he's had injury issues as well, so that's a question mark. I think what we saw last year from Louisville, I think they're going to take a step back from what we saw last year, but get into that a little bit more about 2 weeks from now when I give my college football breakdown and preview shows. And then obviously you have newcomers in this league. You bring in two teams from the West Coast. So this is the Atlantic Coast Conference, and now we have Stanford and Cal in there, and they could basically probably stand up high enough on the campus and see the Pacific Ocean, but they're going to be playing the Atlantic Coast Conference. Yes, it's crazy. Welcome to 2024 college football, but either way, what to expect from those teams, not a whole lot of expectations. I would say Cal's probably the better overall team versus Stanford. But the team that I'm kind of expecting the most from that's the newcomer into this conference is SMU. Rhett Lashley is still the head coach there. They still have very good talent. This is their first year in a power conference. They've been in the American, they've been in WAC, they've been all over the place for a while. But now they're in the ACC. I like the talent that they have. I like Rhett Lashley as a head coach. Different style of playing in the ACC versus what they're used to. I think they could contend potentially for a conference title berth. Even a conference championship at least this game out of what SMU is doing there. And then other super teams are in this league. Boston College hires Ryan with Boston College. They got it down in the last couple of years. Jeff Hadley. Syracuse is probably going to be the easiest schedule in the conference. They bring in the quarterback from Ohio State. And Georgia Tech. Haynes King was in his second year as a starter at Georgia Tech. They gave Georgia all they could handle at the end of the regular season last year. They opened up in Dublin against Florida State, so that's a huge game there. For those would be potential sleeper teams. I think that's where it kind of stops as potential sleeper teams or some other teams. Duke just hired Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz has not shown great work as a head coach, so we'll have to kind of wait and hold our expectations there. Virginia, I don't expect very much out of, and some of the other teams there I don't expect very much out of. But the ACC, a lot of people are saying it's kind of a three-team race between Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. I would tend to agree, but I like Virginia Tech's chances to be that 4-team and maybe surprise some of those top three teams as well. And like I said with Miami, I still plan the wait-and-see game with Miami and Martin Cristobal. That has been my ACC breakdown. I will get to them more in my college football preview in about 2 weeks. But either way, that has been my ACC breakdown. Now we'll go ahead and finish my show, moving to Major League Baseball and moving to my top 5 first basemen of all time. At number 1, you can call it recency bias, but I watched this guy play his entire career. This guy was unbelievable. His first 10 years in St. Louis were unbelievable. The numbers that you see with this player here, I don't know how you don't have it at number 1. I can kind of hear arguments for other people, but for me, he's the number 1 first baseman of all time, and that is Albert Pujols. 11-time All-Star, 6-time Gold Glover, 3-time NL MVP, 2-time World Series champion, and he's a member of the 3,000 hits, 700 home run club. There ain't nobody else. It's just him. I believe maybe Barry Bonds might be in there, but 3,000 hits and 700 home runs, that is just unbelievable. And as we see with the 6 Gold Gloves, it wasn't all about offense or Pujols. He was a good defensive first baseman as well. Could have had better years with the Angels, was injured quite a bit with the Angels, but his first 10, 11 years with the Cardinals, I would stack him against anybody's first, maybe any 10-year stretch for any player in MLB history. Then at number 2, this is probably who a lot of people have at number 1, but that's going to be Lou Gehrig. And not much more left to say for Lou Gehrig. 7-time All-Star, 6-time World Series champ, 2-time AL MVP. Didn't have the Gold Glove award back in his time, so I would have won a handful of those as well. Great player, part of probably the greatest duo in MLB history with him and Babe Ruth. Legendary player, Lou Gehrig, one of the best, probably 10 to 15 players of all time. Most people are going to have him at the 1 spot for first baseman. I didn't get to see him play. Most people didn't get to see him play. I don't think there's many people alive today that got to see Lou Gehrig play and can remember it. So that's why I went with Albert Pujols, but Lou Gehrig at number 2, you can't go wrong. You have to have him in your top 5 first baseman list. At number 3, it's a little bit of a surprise, but I'm going to go with Jimmy Fox, a guy who played a little bit later than Lou Gehrig, but his numbers are staggering as well. 9-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champ, 3-time AL MVP, won the Triple Crown in 1933. Not a lot of players in MLB history have won the Triple Crown, so that's very, very impressive to me when you win that, because that's a very hard thing to do, especially when you're playing in the same league with just baseball players. Jimmy Fox, he won 2 World Series with the Philadelphia A's before they moved to Oakland. Played a lot of time in Boston for the Red Sox, was great there, bounced around the league, but everywhere he went, he was a great player with him. Offensive side and defensive side, another guy who played, and they didn't have the Gold Glove award when he was playing in the league, so he would have won some of those awards, but he wasn't around at that time. Either way, Jimmy Fox is my number 3 overall first baseman of all time. At number 4, I have Stan the Man Musial. Listen to this shit. 24-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champ, 3-time NL MVP. 24-time All-Star. That's insane. Maybe I should have had him higher. Either way, like I said, 3-time World Series champ. It's hard when you're putting together the starting lineup for all time for the St. Louis Cardinals, and you have to debate at first base between Albert Pujols and Stan Musial. That's a really tough conversation. I'd go with Albert Pujols, but I didn't really get to see Stan Musial play, so that's different. But people who saw Stan Musial play and maybe saw Albert Pujols' career as well, maybe have it the other way. You're splitting hairs either way. Number 4, first base of all time is Stan Musial. And then to finish out my list, this is going to be a little recency bias, but this is a guy, it's hard to argue with his numbers as well, and that is going to be Miguel Cabrera. 12-time All-Star, World Series champion in 03 with the Marlins, 2-time AL MVP, a member of the 500 home run, 3,000 hit club, not a lot of members in that club. Also won the Triple Crown, I believe that was in 2013 he won the Triple Crown. He was the first guy to do it all the way since. Carl Yastrzemski did that in the 70s, so there was a big gap between Triple Crowns, and Miguel Cabrera did that. Miguel Cabrera was just the model of consistency. He was one of the best hitters I've had the opportunity to watch. The way he played at the plate, I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of Tony Gwynn, but it reminded you a little bit of Tony Gwynn, the way his style of hitting, and he was just a guy, he knew how to work the count, he knew how to get on base. He wasn't just a home run guy, as we saw with over 3,000 hits. He was one of the best hitters I had the opportunity, like I said, to see in my lifetime. Miguel Cabrera, maybe a lot of people don't have him as a top 5 first baseman of all time, but I certainly do because I saw him play, and at the end of his career, he kind of got caught up in obscurity a little bit because those Tiger teams weren't great, but you still must watch TV until probably about the last 2 or 3 years in his career. So just go ahead and recap. At number 1, I got Albert Pujols. 2, I got Lou Gehrig. 3, I got Jimmy Fox. 4, I got Stan the Man Musial. And then at number 5, I have Miguel Cabrera. So that is my top 5 first baseman. Love to hear people's list. Comment in the YouTube comment section, or DM me if you want. You can DM me at Sports Talk on a Budget, either on Instagram or Twitter, or you can DM me under Cody W on Facebook as well. But either way, that has been my show for today. So thank you for watching and listening. Of course, if you like the video version, please like and subscribe right down here. We're watching on YouTube under Sports Talk on a Budget. Even for the audio version, is available on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again for watching and listening to this show, and have a great day.